If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the book. Chapter 1, Seeds of Wealth. Part 1, Planting Your First Dollar. When Warren Buffett was asked about his greatest investment secret, he didn't mention complex algorithms or insider knowledge. Instead, he pointed to a simple habit that started when he was 11 years old. He bought his first stock with $140.75 he had saved from delivering newspapers. That first investment taught him something more valuable than any business school curriculum could: the power of beginning, no matter how small the amount. The psychological weight of that first dollar saved often feels heavier than the thousandth. Dave Ramsey discovered this during his financial counseling sessions, where he watched people agonize over saving their initial $100 while later effortlessly building $1,000 emergency funds. The barrier wasn't mathematical, it was mental. Once people crossed that initial threshold, momentum naturally followed. Consider Netflix's Reed Hastings, who started his wealth-building journey by automatically saving $25 from each paycheck in the early 1980s. He called it paying himself first before anyone else could claim the money. This simple system eventually funded his entrepreneurial ventures, including the company that would revolutionize entertainment. The key wasn't the amount, it was the automation and consistency. Behavioral economists Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir studied this phenomenon extensively. They found that people experiencing financial scarcity often postpone saving because they believe their situation is temporary. Yet those who started saving even $1 consistently broke what they called the scarcity trap, the mental state that keeps people focused only on immediate needs. The mechanics are surprisingly straightforward. Open a savings account separate from your checking account. Many banks offer accounts with no minimum balance requirements. Transfer any amount, $1, $5, $20, immediately after each paycheck arrives. The specific amount matters less than the timing and consistency. Benjamin Graham emphasized this principle in his investment philosophy. Regular, disciplined contributions compound not just financially, but psychologically. Each deposit reinforces the identity shift from someone who spends everything to someone who builds wealth. This identity change, Graham observed, becomes self-reinforcing. Marie Curie applied similar thinking to her scientific career, setting aside small amounts of time daily for research despite working multiple jobs. She understood that consistent, modest efforts accumulated into extraordinary results. Her approach mirrors the compound effect that transforms small savings into substantial wealth over time. The first dollar represents more than currency. It signals a fundamental decision to prioritize your future self. Once planted, this financial seed begins growing immediately, not just through interest, but through the confidence and clarity it provides. Every subsequent dollar becomes easier to save because the foundation already exists. Part 2, The Story of Two Budgets. Sarah Martinez learned about budgeting the hard way when her meticulously crafted spending plan collapsed within 6 weeks. She had created what seemed like a financial masterpiece. Every dollar allocated, every category defined to the penny, every expense tracked with military precision. Yet, when her car needed an unexpected repair, her rigid system cracked like dried paint. Meanwhile, her colleague James approached budgeting with what appeared to be casual indifference, yet somehow maintained steady savings and rarely felt stressed about money. The difference between their approaches reveals a fundamental truth about successful financial planning. Sarah's first budget resembled a prison sentence. She allocated exactly $200 monthly for groceries, $50 for entertainment, and $30 for miscellaneous expenses. When she spent $52 on a friend's birthday dinner, she felt like she had failed completely. This perfectionist approach mirrors what Dave Ramsey calls budget bankruptcy, when unrealistic restrictions lead to complete abandonment of financial discipline. Research from the University of Toronto found that people using overly restrictive budgets were 40% more likely to quit budgeting entirely within 3 months. James understood something Sarah initially missed. Budgets succeed when they reflect reality rather than aspirations. He used what financial experts call the 50-30-20 framework, dedicating 50% of his after-tax income to necessities, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. This approach, popularized by Senator Elizabeth Warren before her political career, provides structure while maintaining flexibility. When James wanted to attend a concert, he simply adjusted within his wants category rather than feeling guilty about budget violations. The transformation happens when you view budgeting as resource allocation rather than restriction. Warren Buffett's approach to personal spending demonstrates this mindset perfectly. Despite his enormous wealth, Buffett still lives in the same modest Omaha home he purchased in 1958, not because he cannot afford more, but because housing represents one allocation choice among many. His spending aligns with his values rather than his capacity. Zero-based budgeting offers another powerful approach for those who prefer more detailed control. Ramit Sethi recommends this method for people starting their financial journey because it forces conscious decisions about every dollar. Unlike traditional budgets that build on previous spending patterns, zero-based budgeting starts fresh each month, assigning every dollar a specific purpose before the month begins. Companies like Coca-Cola use this approach for corporate budgeting, questioning every expense annually rather than automatically continuing previous spending patterns. The most successful budgets incorporate what behavioral economists call implementation intentions, specific if-then plans for handling unexpected situations. Instead of hoping discipline will prevail when faced with temptation, effective budgeters create predetermined responses. If restaurant spending exceeds limits, then home-cooked meals increase the following week. If entertainment costs spike, then streaming subscriptions temporarily pause. Your budget should evolve as your life changes. Marie Curie adjusted her personal spending as her research income fluctuated, always maintaining funds for laboratory equipment while cutting other expenses. This adaptive approach ensures long-term sustainability rather than short-term perfection. The goal is not creating the perfect budget, but building a sustainable system that supports your larger financial objectives while acknowledging human nature's complexity. Part 3. Rainy Days and Emergency Funds. When Hurricane Sandy slammed into New York in 2012, millions lost power, transportation ground to a halt, and thousands faced weeks without work. Yet amid the chaos, two neighbors experienced vastly different realities. Sarah, a teacher who had been religiously saving $50 monthly for 2 years, maintained her mortgage payments and groceries without stress. Meanwhile, her neighbor Mark, who earned twice her salary but lived paycheck to paycheck, found himself borrowing money just to buy batteries and canned food. This stark contrast reveals something profound about emergency funds that most financial advice misses. Building a safety net is not about having money sitting idle. It is about purchasing something invaluable, peace of mind and the ability to make decisions from strength rather than desperation. Dave Ramsey suggests starting with $1,000 as your initial emergency fund, but research shows that even $400 can prevent most people from falling into debt when unexpected expenses arise. The Federal Reserve found that 40% of Americans cannot handle a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Yet anyone earning minimum wage can reach this milestone by saving just $35 monthly for 1 year. The key lies in understanding what constitutes a true emergency. Your car breaking down qualifies. That designer jacket on sale does not. Vicki Robin, author of Your Money or Your Life, observed that people who clearly define emergencies beforehand resist the temptation to raid their funds for non-essential purchases. Where you store this money matters more than you might think. High-yield savings accounts currently offer around 4 to 5% annually, significantly outpacing traditional savings accounts at 0.01%. Marcus by Goldman Sachs and Ally Bank represent solid options that keep your money accessible while earning respectable returns. The goal is liquidity with modest growth, not investment returns. Most financial experts recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses, but this advice often overwhelms beginners. Start with 1 month. Once you reach that milestone, the confidence boost typically motivates people to continue. J.L. Collins emphasizes this psychological momentum in The Simple Path to Wealth. Early wins create lasting habits. Consider automating your emergency fund contributions immediately after each paycheck. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler found that people save more effectively when money moves automatically rather than requiring active decisions each month. Even $25 weekly accumulates to $1,300 annually. Your emergency fund should feel boring. If you are checking its balance daily or considering it for purchases, you have probably made it too accessible or too exciting. The most successful savers treat emergency funds like insurance policies, glad they exist, but hoping never to use them. Remember that building this safety net represents a fundamental shift from scarcity thinking to abundance planning. You are no longer hoping nothing bad happens. You are prepared when something inevitably does. Part 4. Watching Money Grow. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, though he probably never said those exact words. What he might have appreciated, however, is what Warren Buffett demonstrated when he bought his first stock at age 11 with $140 of saved money. That small investment taught him a lesson worth billions. Money doesn't just sit quietly in accounts waiting for you to spend it. When treated properly, it multiplies. Consider the story of Ronald Reed, a janitor and gas station attendant from Vermont who died in 2014 worth over $8 million. He never earned more than $20,000 annually, yet he understood something profound about money's natural tendency to grow. Reed bought shares of companies like Procter & Gamble and held them for decades, reinvesting dividends and adding small amounts regularly. His secret wasn't complex financial products or insider knowledge. He simply fed his investments consistently and gave them time to flourish. The mathematics behind compound growth operate like a snowball rolling downhill, gathering mass and momentum. When you earn interest on your principal, then earn interest on that interest, the growth accelerates dramatically over time. A single $1,000 investment earning 7% annually becomes $2,000 after 10 years, but reaches nearly $8,000 after 30 years. The final 20 years generates 6 times more wealth than the first 10. This principle transforms modest contributions into substantial wealth when applied consistently. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings has spoken about how his mother invested small amounts monthly in index funds throughout his childhood. Those regular $50 and $100 deposits, seemingly insignificant at the time, funded part of his Stanford education years later. The key lies in automation and persistence. Set up automatic transfers that move money from checking to investment accounts before you can spend it elsewhere. Start with amounts that feel almost trivial, $25 weekly or $100 monthly. These sums seem too small to matter, yet they establish the habit that creates wealth. Track your progress monthly, not daily. Financial markets fluctuate constantly, but long-term growth trends upward despite temporary setbacks. Create simple spreadsheets or use apps that show your account values over time. Celebrate reaching milestones like your first $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000. These moments prove the system works and motivate continued contributions. When setbacks occur, market downturns, job losses, or unexpected expenses, remember that successful investors view these as temporary interruptions rather than permanent defeats. Ann Scheiber, a retired IRS auditor, turned $5,000 into $22 million by continuing to invest through every market crash and recession for 50 years. Her fortune grew not because she timed markets perfectly, but because she never stopped feeding her investments. Your money grows best when you treat it like a garden that requires regular attention, but not constant interference. Water it consistently, protect it from major threats, and trust in time's patient power to transform small seeds into abundant harvests. Chapter 2, The Dance of Supply and Demand. Part 1, Chasing Scarcity, When Less is More. When Toyota launched the Prius in 1997, gasoline was cheap and SUVs ruled American roads. The hybrid seemed destined for failure. Yet by 2008, as gas prices soared past $4 per gallon, Prius buyers faced 6-month waiting lists. Toyota had turned scarcity of fuel efficiency into gold. This pattern repeats throughout business history. When resources become scarce, companies that prepared for constraints often thrive while others scramble. The 2008 financial crisis devastated many businesses, But Netflix used the economic downturn to their advantage. As consumers cut entertainment budgets, they canceled expensive cable subscriptions and embraced Netflix's affordable streaming service. Scarcity of disposable income created abundance for the right business model. Personal finance follows similar rules. Dave Ramsey built his fortune teaching people to harness their own scarcity. His debt snowball method works precisely because it creates artificial scarcity. By attacking the smallest debt first, regardless of interest rates, people experience quick wins that motivate continued sacrifice. The psychological boost from eliminating one payment creates momentum to tackle larger debts. Ramsey discovered that manufactured scarcity often works better than mathematical optimization. Consider Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx with just $5,000. Her limited budget forced creative solutions that established competitors with unlimited resources couldn't match. She couldn't afford traditional advertising, so she personally visited department stores and demonstrated her product. She couldn't hire expensive designers, so she cut the feet-off pantyhose herself and tested prototypes. These constraints led to innovations that eventually made her a billionaire. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment reveals why scarcity creates strength. Children who delayed gratification, who experienced artificial scarcity of immediate pleasure, showed better life outcomes decades later. They earned higher SAT scores, maintained healthier weights, and exhibited lower rates of addiction. Learning to work within constraints builds the mental muscles needed for long-term success. Modern research by Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir confirms that scarcity sharpens focus. When resources are limited, we naturally prioritize better. A busy restaurant owner makes faster decisions than one with empty tables. A cash-strapped startup moves more efficiently than a well-funded competitor, drowning in options. Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, made his fortune by seeking scarcity. He bought stocks when others avoided them, purchasing quality companies during market downturns when prices reflected artificial scarcity of buyers. His student Warren Buffett continues this approach, famously advising investors to be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. The next time you face constraints, remember that scarcity often signals opportunity. Limited time forces you to focus on what matters most. Tight budgets prevent wasteful spending. Reduced options eliminate decision paralysis. The question isn't whether you'll face scarcity, it's whether you'll recognize its hidden advantages. Part 2. Finding opportunity in shortages. When my friend Sarah lost her marketing job during the 2008 recession, she faced what seemed like an impossible situation. No income, mounting bills, and a job market flooded with experienced candidates. But within 6 months, she had built a thriving freelance consulting business that eventually out-earned her corporate salary. Her secret? She recognized that her shortage of traditional employment options had created an abundance of time to focus on what companies really needed during tough times: efficient, results-driven marketing on tight budgets. This phenomenon appears throughout history. During World War II, rationing forced Americans to develop victory gardens, leading to the most productive home gardening movement the country had ever seen. The shortage of store-bought vegetables created an opportunity for self-sufficiency that many families continued long after the war ended. In Silicon Valley, countless tech giants emerged from garage startups because founders couldn't afford proper office space. The constraint of limited resources forced them to focus relentlessly on creating valuable products rather than impressive headquarters. The key lies in what economists call gap moments, those spaces where demand exists but supply hasn't caught up yet. During the early days of the internet, countless entrepreneurs built fortunes by identifying these gaps. Jeff Bezos noticed that people wanted to buy books online, but no major retailer offered comprehensive selection with home delivery. His shortage of physical bookstore inventory became Amazon's competitive advantage. Consider your own shortages differently. Lack of capital might force you to bootstrap a business, teaching you lean operations that venture-funded competitors never learn. Limited time could push you to automate processes that others handle manually, giving you scalable advantages later. Even shortage of confidence can drive deeper preparation and research that ultimately makes you more knowledgeable than naturally confident competitors. The most successful people I've studied share a common trait. They actively seek constraints. Dave Ramsey built his financial empire after going bankrupt, using his shortage of money to develop the debt elimination strategies that would later help millions. His personal shortage became his professional abundance. When you encounter your next shortage, ask yourself, what gap does this create that others aren't seeing? What skills must I develop that others with more resources never bother to learn? What creative solutions emerge when traditional options disappear? Sometimes our greatest limitations become our most valuable assets. Part 3. Why we buy. The pull of desire. When Netflix sent you that final DVD in 2010, they weren't just changing their business model. They were betting that you'd forgotten what you actually needed versus what you thought you wanted. The company's transition from physical discs to streaming revealed something profound about human behavior. Most of our purchasing decisions happen in the gap between genuine necessity and manufactured desire. Consider how Coca-Cola created an entire industry around sweetened water. In 1886, pharmacist John Pemberton sold 9 glasses of his concoction per day. Today, the company sells 1.9 billion servings daily worldwide. They didn't discover a hidden human need for caffeinated sugar water. They created it through relentless messaging that connected their product to happiness, friendship, and belonging. This manufacturing of desire operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Advertisers spend over $600 billion annually studying how your brain responds to colors, sounds, and social cues. They know that showing people enjoying a product triggers mirror neurons that make you feel like you're missing out. They understand that limited-time offers create artificial urgency, even when the product will be available indefinitely. Social media amplifies these triggers exponentially. When your friend posts about their new purchase, your brain processes this as social proof, evidence that this item brings satisfaction. Instagram's algorithm specifically promotes content that generates engagement, which often means showcasing lifestyle purchases that others might envy or desire. The psychological distance between wanting and needing creates what behavioral economists call the hot-cold empathy gap. When you're feeling good about your finances, that expensive gadget seems reasonable. When you're stressed about money later, you wonder what possessed you to buy it. Warren Buffett's mentor, Benjamin Graham, taught him to distinguish between price and value by asking a simple question: what would this be worth if I couldn't sell it for 5 years? This forces you to consider utility rather than social signaling or momentary impulses. The most financially successful people develop what Ramit Sethi calls conscious spending. They spend lavishly on things they genuinely love, while cutting costs ruthlessly on everything else. They recognize that every purchase represents a choice about how to allocate their limited resources. Before making any non-essential purchase, try this framework. Wait 72 hours, then ask yourself 3 questions. Will this purchase solve a specific problem I've had for at least a month? Will I still want this if none of my friends see it? Am I buying this to feel better about something else in my life? Your awareness of these psychological triggers becomes your strongest defense against manipulation. When you can identify why something appeals to you, you regain control over whether that appeal justifies the cost. Part 4. Priced to move. When deals blossom. That moment when you spot a 75% off designer jacket in your exact size feels like winning the lottery. Your heart races, palms sweat, and suddenly you're calculating how much room is left on your credit card. But here's what Macy's, Amazon, and every retailer banking on your impulse knows. The price tag is just the opening move in a sophisticated psychological chess match. Consider how J.C. Penney learned this lesson the hard way in 2012. CEO Ron Johnson eliminated sales and coupons, offering everyday low prices instead. Customers fled in droves, and the company nearly collapsed. Why? Because shoppers had become addicted to the thrill of getting a deal, not just getting a good price. The psychology of discounts runs deeper than simple math. The difference between a genuine bargain and manufactured urgency often lies in 3 factors: timing, comparison, and your actual need. When Southwest Airlines offers flash sales, they typically occur during low-demand periods, Tuesday afternoons or January travel dates. The airline needs to fill seats that would otherwise remain empty. This represents real supply and demand economics at work. Contrast this with fashion retailers who create artificial scarcity through limited time offers that mysteriously reappear every few weeks. The same final day sale you see today will likely resurface next month with different wording. True bargains solve genuine oversupply problems. Fake ones manufacture pressure to make you act without thinking. Here's a practical framework that has saved me thousands. The 10-10-10 rule combined with price research. Before buying anything over $50 on sale, ask yourself, how will I feel about this purchase in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years? Then spend 10 minutes researching the item's price history, using tools like Honey or Camel for online purchases. When Amazon shows you a was $199, now $99 television, these tools reveal whether it was actually $199 last week or just briefly marked up to create that comparison. Many deals involve raising prices before lowering them, a practice so common that several states have passed laws requiring minimum time periods at the higher price. The most successful deal hunters I know follow a simple principle. They decide what they need before they see what's on sale. They maintain lists of items they've been wanting for months, along with target prices based on research. When deals appear on those specific items, they act quickly. When everything else goes on sale, they barely notice. Your restraint becomes your greatest asset in these moments. Every retailer counts on you making decisions based on fear of missing out rather than actual value. The question isn't whether you can afford the discounted price. It's whether buying this item at any price genuinely improves your life in a way that justifies the cost. Chapter 3: Mind Games with Money. Part 1: The Psychology of Spending. When Amazon released its first Echo device in 2014, something fascinating happened at Best Buy stores across America. Sales associates noticed customers would walk in asking for that thing that talks back, spend 20 minutes comparing features, then leave empty-handed only to return weeks later and buy immediately. The difference? Time had allowed them to move from emotional impulse to rational evaluation. This pattern reveals something crucial about how our minds handle money decisions. Most spending choices happen in two distinct mental systems, much like Amazon's customers experienced. The first system operates fast and emotional, driven by immediate desires and social pressure. The second system engages slower deliberation, weighing costs against benefits with clearer logic. Research from Duke University tracked 2,000 consumers for 18 months, monitoring their purchasing decisions through smartphone apps. The findings surprised even the researchers. People who paused for just 60 seconds before any purchase over $50 reduced their regret-filled purchases by 40%. More telling, they increased their satisfaction with purchases they did make by 25%. Consider how Starbucks capitalizes on first-system thinking. Their mobile app removes friction from the buying process, while adding emotional triggers through rewards and personalized offers. Meanwhile, Costco operates on second-system principles, requiring membership fees that force customers to justify purchases more carefully. Both strategies work because they align with different psychological spending patterns. Your personal money scripts run deeper than conscious choice. These invisible narratives, formed often in childhood, whisper suggestions about what money means and how it should flow. Sarah, a marketing director from Portland, discovered her script during a financial counseling session. Despite earning $85,000 annually, she consistently overspent on others while neglecting her retirement savings. Her underlying belief, traced to childhood experiences of poverty, was that spending on herself felt selfish while spending on others proved her worth. The most effective spending awareness technique doesn't require complex budgeting software. Before any discretionary purchase, ask yourself one question: what am I actually buying? Often you're purchasing more than the item itself. That expensive dinner might really be about proving success to friends. The designer handbag could represent confidence you feel you lack. The subscription service might be buying the fantasy of becoming someone more organized or creative. Understanding these deeper motivations transforms spending from unconscious habit into intentional choice, creating space between impulse and action where better decisions live. Part 2: Habits that build or break fortunes. Warren Buffett's housekeeper became a millionaire not through stock tips or secret strategies, but by doing something remarkable. She automated a single habit. Every month for 30 years, she invested a small portion of her modest salary into index funds. No market timing, no complex analysis, just one simple routine repeated thousands of times. When she retired, her wealth exceeded what most high earners accumulate in their entire careers. The difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who remain financially stuck rarely comes down to income level or investment genius. It's about habits so small they seem insignificant in the moment, yet compound into life-changing results over decades. James Clear documented this phenomenon extensively, showing how tiny improvements compound exponentially. A person who saves just 1% more each month doesn't see dramatic changes initially. But after 20 years, that seemingly trivial adjustment creates wealth gaps of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The mathematics are merciless. Small habits, repeated consistently, become unstoppable forces. Consider Ann Scheiber, a retired IRS agent who turned $5,000 into $22 million through one powerful habit. She reinvested every dividend, no matter how small. While her colleagues spent their dividends on immediate pleasures, Scheiber built an automated system that worked even while she slept. Her secret wasn't superior stock picking, but superior habit formation. The most destructive financial habits often masquerade as reasonable behaviors. Social media scrolling triggers constant comparison spending. My colleague bought a new car. Maybe I should upgrade mine too. This comparison trap has bankrupted more middle-class families than any economic recession. Each comparison creates artificial urgency to spend money that could have been invested instead. Procrastination habits prove equally devastating. The person who delays investing until next month for 5 years loses approximately $200,000 in eventual wealth compared to someone who starts immediately. Compound interest rewards action over perfection, yet procrastinators remain paralyzed by analysis, missing the most important element, time. Dave Ramsey's research with thousands of millionaires revealed a surprising pattern. Most wealthy individuals developed boring, predictable routines around money. They automated savings before paying any other bills. They tracked spending weekly, not obsessively, but consistently. They lived below their means, not through deprivation, but through systems that made good choices effortless. The transformation begins with replacing just one destructive habit. Instead of checking social media when bored, check your investment account. Instead of buying coffee out, brew at home and invest the difference. Instead of shopping for entertainment, research companies you might want to own. Building wealth isn't about perfect decisions. It's about creating systems where good decisions happen automatically, even when motivation fades. Part 3. Turning wants into wealth. Want turned Patagonia CEO Yvon Chouinard into one of America's wealthiest environmentalists, but not in the way you'd expect. His obsession with rock climbing gear led him to forge his own pitons because existing ones damaged the rock. That single desire to climb without destroying nature spawned a billion-dollar company. Chouinard's story illustrates a fundamental truth about wealth building. Our strongest wants, when channeled correctly, become our most powerful wealth generators. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment revealed something crucial about financial success. Children who delayed eating one marshmallow to get 2 later earned higher SAT scores, had better health, and accumulated more wealth as adults. But here's what most people miss about delayed gratification. It's not about suppressing desires. It's about redirecting them toward bigger payoffs. Sarah Blakely turned her frustration with pantyhose into Spanx, transforming personal annoyance into a billion-dollar fortune. She didn't ignore her want for better undergarments, she monetized it. This pattern repeats across countless success stories. The key lies in asking a different question. Instead of, how can I afford this? Ask, how can I profit from wanting this? Consider Netflix's Reed Hastings, who founded the company after accumulating a $40 late fee at Blockbuster. His irritation with the existing system didn't lead to complaining. It led to disruption. He channeled his desire for a better movie rental experience into building the solution. Your wants contain valuable market intelligence. When you desperately need something that doesn't exist or works poorly, Thousands of others likely share that frustration. Sarah Blakely spent 2 years researching hosiery patents and cold-calling manufacturers because she knew other women faced the same problem. Start small with the want audit approach. Track everything you desire to buy for 1 month, but before purchasing, research whether you could create a better version, find it cheaper, or turn the want into income. When photographer Chase Jarvis couldn't afford expensive camera equipment, he started a gear rental business instead. His want became his customer's solution. The compound effect applies to redirected wants just as powerfully as compound interest. Ramit Sethi's students who turned their desire for travel into travel blogging didn't just save money on trips, they built businesses that funded indefinite travel. Their want became their wealth vehicle. Smart shoppers understand that every purchase decision is actually 3 decisions: buy it, make it, or profit from it. Before clicking Add to Cart, successful wealth builders ask themselves which option serves their long-term prosperity best. Sometimes the answer is still to buy, but now it's an intentional choice rather than an impulse. Your desires aren't obstacles to wealth, they're the raw material for creating it. The difference between those who struggle financially and those who thrive often comes down to this single shift: treating wants as wealth-building opportunities rather than wealth-draining temptations. Part 4. Saying no to say yes. When Warren Buffett was building his fortune, he famously drove the same modest car for decades while peers flaunted luxury vehicles. His secret wasn't missing the finer things in life. He was playing a completely different game. Every dollar he didn't spend on status symbols went straight into investments that compounded over time. Buffett understood something most people miss. Saying no to good things today creates space to say yes to extraordinary things tomorrow. The mathematics of this approach are stunning when you see them in action. Consider Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings, who in the early 2000s chose to reinvest profits back into technology rather than taking lavish executive bonuses. While competitors spent heavily on corporate perks and expansive office spaces, Hastings said no to traditional executive lifestyle inflation. That discipline allowed Netflix to pivot from DVDs to streaming, ultimately creating billions in value that no corner office could have matched. This principle extends far beyond wealthy executives. Maria, a teacher from Phoenix, discovered its power when she stopped saying yes to every dinner invitation and weekend trip. Instead of feeling deprived, she found herself with an extra $300 monthly that went directly into index funds. 5 years later, that consistent no to social spending had generated enough investment returns to cover a down payment on her first home. The challenge lies in peer pressure and social expectations. Research from Harvard Business School shows that people consistently underestimate how much others will respect their financial boundaries. When Maria started declining expensive group dinners, she worried about seeming antisocial. Instead, her friends began asking for her advice on saving money. Her no became permission for others to examine their own spending patterns. Smart boundary setting requires what Dave Ramsey calls values-based budgeting. Before any purchase decision, successful wealth builders ask themselves, does this move me closer to or further from my most important goals? This simple filter transforms difficult choices into clear ones. When your priorities are crystal clear, saying no becomes easier because you're really saying yes to something more meaningful. The most successful people understand that every yes to unnecessary spending is actually a no to future opportunities. Your future self will thank you for the discipline you practice today. Chapter 4: Simple Paths to Prosperity. Part 1: The Tale of Quiet Investing. When Warren Buffett was just 11 years old, he bought his first stock, 3 shares of Citi's Service Preferred at $38 each. Within days, the price plummeted to $27. Young Warren watched nervously as his small investment lost nearly 30% of its value. But instead of panicking, he held on. Months later, when the stock climbed back to $40, he sold immediately, pocketing a modest $5 profit. Years later, he watched that same stock soar to over $200 per share. That early lesson shaped one of history's greatest investors. Patience pays, but real patience pays exponentially more. Most people treat investing like they're placing bets at a casino, hoping for quick wins, jumping between hot stocks and checking their portfolio balance obsessively. But the most successful investors follow a different playbook entirely. They approach the market like a farmer approaches planting season. They prepare the soil, plant quality seeds, tend to their crops consistently, and wait for harvest time. John Bogle, founder of Vanguard, revolutionized investing by creating the first index fund in 1975. Wall Street executives mocked it as Bogle's folly, arguing that nobody would want to settle for average market returns. They were spectacularly wrong. Today, Vanguard manages over $8 trillion in assets, largely because Bogle understood a simple truth. Trying to beat the market consistently is like trying to predict tomorrow's weather 6 months in advance. You might get lucky occasionally, but you'll be wrong more often than right. Index funds work because they follow the market's natural rhythm. Instead of betting on individual companies, you own tiny pieces of hundreds or thousands of companies. When some stumble, others thrive. When entire sectors struggle, others flourish. This isn't just theory, it's mathematics working in your favor over time. Consider the S&P 500's performance over the past century. Despite enduring the Great Depression, World War II, multiple recessions, and countless market crashes, it has delivered an average annual return of approximately 10%. A person who invested $1,000 in 1924 and never added another dollar would have over $10 million today. The secret ingredient wasn't genius stock picking or perfect market timing. It was simply staying invested through the inevitable ups and downs. Real estate follows similar principles. Rather than flipping houses or speculating on hot markets, successful real estate investors focus on rental properties in stable neighborhoods. They buy homes that generate positive cash flow from day one, gradually paying down mortgages while collecting monthly rent checks. The property appreciates slowly but steadily, while tenants essentially pay for the investor's retirement. The beauty of quiet investing lies in its simplicity. You don't need to read financial news obsessively or understand complex derivatives. You need just 3 things: time, consistency, and the wisdom to ignore the noise. Start with small amounts, even $50 monthly, into a broad market index fund. Increase contributions whenever possible. Reinvest dividends automatically. Then do the hardest part of all: wait. This approach transforms investing from a stressful gamble into a boring, predictable path toward financial freedom. And boring, it turns out, is exactly what your future self will thank you for. Part 2. Learning from mistakes. I learned this lesson the hard way in 2008, watching my carefully constructed portfolio lose 40% of its value in 6 months. Like millions of others, I panicked and sold everything at the bottom, converting paper losses into permanent ones. That single decision cost me more than the market crash itself. It taught me that my worst enemy wasn't market volatility, but my own emotions. Warren Buffett famously said that successful investing requires just 2 rules: never lose money and never forget rule number 1. Yet, every seasoned investor has a graveyard of financial mistakes behind them. The difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who remain stuck isn't the absence of errors, it's how they respond to them. Consider the story of Jack Bogle, founder of Vanguard. In the 1970s, he made what seemed like a catastrophic career mistake by getting fired from his previous firm. Instead of viewing this as failure, he used the experience to launch the first index fund, revolutionizing investing for ordinary people. His mistake became the foundation for trillions of dollars in investor savings. The most expensive financial education comes from your own poor decisions. Sarah, a marketing executive I know, learned this when she invested her entire emergency fund in a single tech stock during the dot-com boom. When the company went bankrupt, she lost everything and had to move back with her parents at age 35. Today, she's a millionaire. Not despite that mistake, but because of what it taught her about diversification and risk management. Financial mistakes fall into predictable patterns. We chase performance by buying high and selling low. We ignore diversification, putting all our eggs in seemingly golden baskets. We mistake speculation for investment, confusing luck with skill during bull markets. We delay starting because we're waiting for perfect conditions that never arrive. The key is treating each mistake as expensive tuition rather than personal failure. When you lose money on a bad investment, ask yourself 3 questions. What assumptions proved wrong? What warning signs did I ignore? How can I structure future decisions to avoid this trap? Dave Ramsey built an empire teaching financial principles he learned from his own bankruptcy. His million-dollar real estate portfolio collapsed in the 1980s, leaving him broke and bitter. But those ashes became fertile ground for wisdom that has helped millions of people escape debt and build wealth. The most resilient investors I know keep a mistake journal, not to torture themselves, but to extract maximum learning from minimum pain. They review what went wrong without shame, focusing on systems and processes rather than character judgments. This transforms painful experiences into valuable pattern recognition. Your financial mistakes aren't character flaws, they're data points. Each one makes you slightly wiser, slightly more resilient, and significantly more equipped to recognize similar traps in the future. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress built on the solid foundation of hard-won experience. Part 3. Rich slowly, not quickly. When Warren Buffett was 12 years old, he bought his first stock, 3 shares of Citi Service Preferred at $38 per share. Within days, the price dropped to $27. Young Warren watched his small fortune evaporate and felt the sting of impatience. When the stock recovered to $40, he quickly sold, pocketing a modest $5 profit. He later watched in dismay as Citi Service soared to $200 per share. That childhood lesson shaped one of history's greatest investors. Wealth builds slowly, and patience pays compound dividends. The modern world bombards us with promises of instant wealth, cryptocurrency millionaires overnight, day trading success stories, real estate flipping fortunes. Yet for every headline winner, thousands lose their shirts chasing quick returns. The mathematics of wealth tell a different story, one written in decades, not days. Consider the janitor Ronald Reed, who died in 2014 with an $8 million fortune. Reed never earned more than minimum wage, but he consistently invested small amounts in dividend-paying stocks for over 60 years. While others chased hot tips and market timing schemes, Reed quietly bought quality companies and held them. His secret weapon wasn't intelligence or luck, it was time. Compound growth transforms modest contributions into substantial wealth through a simple principle. Your money earns money, and that money earns money too. A 25-year-old who saves just $300 monthly at 7% annual returns will accumulate over $650,000 by retirement. Wait 10 years to start, and that number drops to $300,000. Time, not timing, creates millionaires. The psychology of slow wealth building runs counter to our instant gratification culture. When Netflix releases a series, we binge watch entire seasons. When Amazon delivers packages, we expect them tomorrow. But financial growth operates on biological time, like oak trees that take decades to mature but stand for centuries. Dave Ramsey's research shows that 74% of millionaires reach their status through consistent saving and investing over time, not through inheritance or windfalls. They drove used cars, lived below their means, and invested the difference in boring index funds and real estate. Their wealth came from what they didn't buy as much as what they did. The emotional rewards of patient wealth building extend beyond money. Each month of consistent saving builds confidence. Each year of compound growth strengthens resolve. Unlike lottery winners who often lose everything within years, slow wealth builders develop the habits and mindset that sustain prosperity. They understand that true security comes not from quick scores, but from systems that work regardless of market conditions. Building wealth slowly isn't just about money, it's about building character. The discipline required to save consistently, the wisdom to ignore market noise, and the patience to let time work its magic create a foundation that quick schemes can never match. Part 4. Your money, your story. Your financial journey is as unique as your fingerprint, yet most people follow cookie-cutter advice that ignores their personal values and circumstances. When Warren Buffett started investing, he wasn't trying to replicate someone else's success. He developed a philosophy that matched his temperament and goals. This personalized approach to money management isn't just smart, it's essential for lasting prosperity. Consider the contrasting paths of 2 tech entrepreneurs from the early 2000s. Mark Benioff of Salesforce focused on building sustainable recurring revenue streams, that aligned with his vision of transforming business software. Meanwhile, countless dot-com founders chased rapid growth and public offerings that looked impressive on paper but crumbled when market conditions shifted. Benioff's approach reflected his personal values of patience and customer focus, while others followed generic playbooks for quick success. Your money story begins with understanding what wealth actually means to you. For some, it's the freedom to travel extensively. For others, it's the security of never worrying about bills or the ability to support family members. Dave Ramsey discovered this truth after his own financial collapse in the 1980s. His subsequent philosophy emphasized debt elimination and conservative growth because security became his primary value after experiencing financial ruin. The most successful financial plans honor individual circumstances rather than following universal formulas. A teacher nearing retirement needs different strategies than a young software developer. A single parent prioritizes emergency funds differently than a childless couple. Yet financial media often promotes one-size-fits-all solutions that ignore these crucial differences. Ramit Sethi's research with thousands of readers revealed that sustainable financial success comes from automation systems that match personal spending patterns and values. Those who tried to force themselves into restrictive budgets that conflicted with their personalities typically failed within months. However, people who designed systems around their natural behaviors, automatically investing before they could spend, or setting up separate accounts for guilt-free purchases, maintained their financial plans for years. Your personal why becomes the foundation for every financial decision. Viktor Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps by maintaining a clear sense of purpose. Similarly, people who connect their money choices to deeper values consistently make better decisions than those motivated solely by external metrics like net worth comparisons. The most profound realization is that building wealth isn't about perfection. It's about progress that aligns with your authentic self. Your money story should reflect your dreams, accommodate your weaknesses, and celebrate your strengths. Write it deliberately, revise it as you grow, and live it proudly. Every financial lesson you learn becomes part of a legacy that extends far beyond bank account balances. Chapter 5, Life Beyond the Ledger, Part 1, Measuring What Really Matters. When Warren Buffett was asked about his greatest investment, most people expected him to mention Coca-Cola or Apple. Instead, he pointed to something that never appeared on any balance sheet: the relationships he'd built over decades. This wasn't sentimentality talking. It was a master investor recognizing that the most valuable assets rarely show up in traditional accounting. The problem with measuring wealth purely through numbers becomes clear when you examine the lives of lottery winners. Research from the National Endowment for Financial Education found that roughly 70% of people who receive large financial windfalls lose it within a few years. Why? They measured their success by the size of their bank account, rather than building the skills, relationships, and habits that create lasting prosperity. Consider Reed Hastings, Netflix's co-founder, who regularly takes 6-week vacations and encourages unlimited time off for his employees. While competitors were counting hours worked, Hastings was measuring something different: creative output and employee satisfaction. This approach helped Netflix outmaneuver Blockbuster, which was obsessed with store locations and late fees, classic metrics that missed the real value shift happening in entertainment. The most successful people develop what psychologists call a wealth portfolio that extends far beyond financial assets. Take Oprah Winfrey, who measures her success through the number of people she's helped transform their lives. Or consider Patagonia's Yvon Chouinard, who donated his $3 billion company to fight climate change, saying he was richest when he was making decisions aligned with his values. This shift in measurement shows up in practical ways. Instead of tracking only net worth, wealthy individuals monitor their time wealth, how many hours they control each week. They measure relationship capital through the quality of their connections, not the quantity. They evaluate their health wealth through energy levels and longevity projections, understanding that poor health can drain financial resources faster than any market crash. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment revealed something profound about delayed gratification, but follow-up studies showed an even more interesting pattern. Children who learned to find joy in the waiting process, who measured success by their ability to enjoy the present moment, showed better long-term outcomes than those who simply endured the delay. What metrics are you using to measure your true wealth? Are you counting only what fills your wallet, or are you tracking what fills your life? Part 2. Freedom over fortune. When Christy Shen quit her six-figure engineering job at age 31, her colleagues thought she'd lost her mind. She had just reached what most would consider the peak of success: high salary, prestigious company, clear path to executive leadership. Instead, she chose to walk away with her husband Bryce, armed with a modest portfolio of index funds and a radical idea. Freedom was worth more than fortune. Their story mirrors a growing movement of people who've discovered what Benjamin Graham hinted at decades ago in The Intelligent Investor: that true wealth isn't about accumulating the most money, but about having enough to live on your own terms. Shen and her husband achieved financial independence not by earning millions, but by systematically reducing their needs while their investments grew to cover those needs permanently. This shift requires rethinking everything we've been taught about success. Dave Ramsey's debt avalanche method isn't just about eliminating monthly payments, it's about eliminating the monthly anxiety that comes with owing others. When you owe nothing, you need remarkably little to survive. When you need little to survive, you need far less money to achieve freedom. The psychology here runs deeper than simple math. Sendhil Mullainathan's research on scarcity reveals why most high earners feel perpetually broke. As income rises, so do expectations and expenses. The lawyer making $200,000 feels just as financially stressed as the teacher making $40,000 because both have structured their lives right up to their income limit. But what if you deliberately stayed below that limit? Vicki Robbins' research for Your Money or Your Life tracked thousands of people who made this choice. The pattern was consistent. Those who capped their lifestyle inflation at middle-class levels while their income continued growing discovered something profound. They could walk away from work entirely within 10 to 15 years. Consider the real cost of that corner office. If your annual expenses are $40,000 and you have $1 million invested earning 4% annually, you're financially free. If your annual expenses are $100,000, you need $2.5 million. That extra lifestyle inflation doesn't just cost money, it costs years of your life spent working to maintain it. The Stoic philosophers understood this centuries ago. Epictetus taught that freedom comes not from having more, but from wanting less. Modern behavioral finance proves this wisdom repeatedly. People who define wealth as having enough report higher life satisfaction than those who define it as having more than others. What would you do if money became optional rather than urgent? That question reveals whether you're building wealth or wealth is building a prison around you. Part 3. Giving, sharing, growing. When Chuck Feeney walked into a New Jersey shopping mall in 1982, few would have guessed they were looking at one of the world's wealthiest men. The co-founder of Duty Free Shoppers wore a plastic digital watch and carried his papers in a plastic bag. By the time he died in 2023, Feeney had given away over $8 billion, virtually his entire fortune, through his foundation, Atlantic Philanthropies. He called it giving while living, and his approach transformed how we think about generosity and wealth. Feeney discovered what researchers at the University of British Columbia confirmed decades later. People who spend money on others report greater happiness than those who spend on themselves. The study, published in Science magazine, showed this effect held true across cultures and income levels. When participants received $20 and were randomly assigned to spend it either on themselves or others, those who gave it away consistently felt better at the end of the day. The mathematics of generosity challenge conventional wisdom about scarcity. Mark Benioff, Salesforce's founder, implemented a unique approach called the 1-1-1 model, donating 1% of equity, product, and employee time from the company's inception. Rather than depleting resources, this commitment attracted top talent and customers who valued purpose-driven business. Salesforce has grown to over $30 billion in annual revenue while maintaining its philanthropic commitments. Consider the story of Osceola McCarty, a washerwoman from Mississippi who never earned more than minimum wage. She walked everywhere, never owned a car, and lived in the same house her entire life. When she retired in 1995, she donated $150,000, nearly her entire life savings, to establish a scholarship fund at the University of Southern Mississippi. Her gift, accumulated through disciplined saving and compound interest, funded education for dozens of students and inspired millions in donations to the university. The ripple effects of generosity follow patterns economists recognize in network effects. When Warren Buffett and Bill Gates launched the Giving Pledge in 2010, asking billionaires to commit at least half their wealth to philanthropy, they created a social movement. Today, over 230 billionaires from 28 countries have signed the pledge, committing more than $600 billion to charitable causes. But generosity doesn't require billions. Time banking networks, where people trade hours of service instead of money, demonstrate how sharing skills creates abundance. In Japan, the Furei Kipu system allows younger people to earn credits by helping elderly citizens, credits they can save for their own future care or transfer to elderly relatives elsewhere. This model transforms aging from a scarcity problem into a community resource. Research shows that people who volunteer regularly live longer, report better physical health, and experience less depression. The Corporation for National and Community Service found that volunteers have mortality rates 12% lower than non-volunteers. Giving literally extends life while enriching it. True wealth includes the capacity to lift others. When you shift from accumulation to circulation, money becomes a tool for creating shared prosperity rather than personal hoarding. Part 4. The Legacy You Leave. When Warren Buffett's father, Howard, served in Congress during the 1940s, he made a decision that puzzled many of his contemporaries. Despite earning a modest government salary, he chose to live below his means and invest his savings in undervalued stocks. But Howard's true legacy wasn't the wealth he accumulated. It was teaching his son Warren that money should serve values, not the other way around. This reversal of priorities has created one of history's most enduring legacies. Warren Buffett has pledged to give away 99% of his wealth, following the blueprint his father established decades earlier. The Buffett legacy isn't measured in billions. It's measured in the countless individuals who learned to invest wisely and the philanthropic revolution sparked by the Giving Pledge. Your legacy begins forming today in the small choices that compound over time, like interest in a savings account. Consider how James Cash Penney, founder of J.C. Penney, structured his company. He insisted that every manager become a partner in their store, sharing both profits and responsibilities. This wasn't just a business model. It was a values system that created wealth for thousands of employees while building a retail empire that lasted over a century. The most powerful legacies operate like compound interest, growing exponentially through each generation. Take the Rockefeller family's approach to wealth transfer. John D. Rockefeller didn't just leave money to his children. He established family meetings, created shared investment vehicles, and insisted that each generation contribute to philanthropic causes. Today, 6 generations later, the family continues to grow their collective wealth while maintaining their commitment to giving. But legacy isn't reserved for the ultra-wealthy. Sarah Breedlove, born to former slaves in 1867, became Madam C.J. Walker by creating hair care products for African-American women. She died worth over $1 million in 1919, but her true legacy was the thousands of women who became financial independent selling her products. She created a business model that generated wealth for an entire community. Research from the Williams Group shows that 90% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the 3rd generation. The primary cause isn't poor investments. It's the failure to transfer values alongside assets. Families that maintain wealth across generations share 3 characteristics. They communicate openly about money, they involve younger generations in financial decisions, and they connect wealth to purpose. Your legacy portfolio requires the same intentional design as your investment portfolio. Start by documenting your financial values. Write letters to future family members explaining not just what you're leaving them, but why you made specific choices. Create systems that teach rather than just provide. Consider establishing family investment clubs. funding educational accounts, or creating small business opportunities for younger family members. The Japanese concept of ikigai, your reason for being, offers a framework for legacy building. Your financial legacy should reflect the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for. This creates sustainable wealth that serves both current and future generations. Plant seeds today that will grow long after you're gone. The most meaningful legacies transform scarcity into abundance, not just for your family, but for your community and the world.